Before we get started installing the gear drive, I had a couple of viewer questions. One was, he asked me if I checked the oil passage from the rocker shaft to the pushrod cup. Well, to be honest, I didn't check these. Of course, I've ran these on the test stand and they're fine, but it still makes you want to take them off and look. But you can look down there and you can see a good clean shot, and so that one is good. When I first put these on, I didn't know how. The instructions say to knead some oil in here. Well, I know how to knead wheel bearings just like most people do, but I don't know how to knead any oil in there. So, as you saw in that video last year, I just cooked them in hot oil for a few hours and hope I get some where I want it. On the stock rocker arms, which are about as good a looking rocker arm as you could want. I mean, they're forged, they're bronze bushed, they're strong, and we know that they'll last 500 miles at Daytona. But they have a squirter that squirts out to the valve tip. That's nice. And then they have another oil passage going to the pushrod cup. So that's nice. But I got this one 25 years ago, and I think we have a quality control issue. The drill missed the spot, or the casting was light here or whatever. And so the oil passage is, that's kind of a bad one. I guess nobody saw that coming through. But so the stage 5 doesn't have anything. It requires splash to do the roller end. And so it's a good thing to try to figure out some way to get some oil in there. I hope the hot oil thing worked for me, but people don't have problems with these. I'm amazed. The only rocker arm problem I ever had, or any part from stage 5, was one rocker arm in one batch. They forgot to hone on the inside. They just picked it from the wrong thing or whatever, so that they didn't hone it. But fortunately, I have a rod hone and a mandrel, so I can hone that out, and it was not an issue. But everything else from stage 5 is perfect. Another viewer asked about the head studs, and the KB head studs are much sexier than the ARPs. The ARP is just a stud, but the KB with this bullet on the bottom, you're not tightening up something weird, I don't know what, but you're not jamming this into the block. So, and this also, when you tighten it down, it doesn't slip. If you bottom these and you see it slip right at the end, it doesn't stay true to the hole. Whereas since the bottom of the hole is drilled and the bullet fits in that spot, these are mo better. And of course, ARP is going to tell you we just stick them in there finger tight. Well, I don't really like that idea. I mean, when you try to take it out, some of them don't come out, some of them do come out. It's terribly tacky. I like this way better. I found a clip from last year's build that shows you what happens when you bottom out ARP studs and why you want KB studs. Okay, I've got all the studs in. ARP recommends you not to tighten these up all the way in the block. And of course I don't like that. I like the old way where you tighten the studs down. That way every time you try to take the nut off, it doesn't bring the stud up with it. But here's the reason that you have to not tighten the studs. Notice how the stud is sitting in the middle of the hole. Now look at that huge gap there. the whole stud moved over. So you have to do it ARP's way and loosen it up where the stud will come back to the middle. Of course, I have to tell you that in the old days we didn't have that problem. This is a Keith Black stud. It's got a bullet on the end. You can stick it in there and tighten it up, and it doesn't try to walk away on you. I guess what's going on here is when the stud bottoms out against the top of the block, wherever the threads are, it just shifts it over. It ain't easy. By the way, I got this other fitting in that I'm going to try to use because that other one was coming out too far. But this one looks like it's good. By the time I screw that all the way in there, I kind of wanted to come up here. I think that's going to interfere, but it may have to come out this way. The hose would clear it probably. So I might have to do that. But anyway, I don't get to put this on right now anyway. And I did get a thick gasket, so I won't have a problem with those 2 bolts that were interfering. I should have ground them off. I got the idler gear in for the gear drive, and I got it put in the front cover. And I was going to put the lower gear on the crankshaft, but it didn't want to go up all the way. This side goes towards the crank. But it's got a massive chamfer there. I can't believe that radius is holding it up. It's 120 thousandths, from, I can't believe that, but it doesn't want to go. So I guess there's no way for me to know if it's touching here or here. So I'm just going to put that on a lathe and turn it and sand or grind a little bit on there, put a little more radius on it. It's only got to come a few thou, but it has to work. It has to go on there. The instructions say go all the way to the crank. Okay, I made some 246 dowel pins to go in here because that's what the Keith Black gear drive takes. And I can't believe that radiusing those corners on the back of this gear allowed it to go up all the way to the crank. I can't believe the radius went up that high or whatever, but anyway it works, so that's all I cared about. I did heat up the gear with your cheap Harbor Freight heat gun, and that makes it slide on a little easier. If you just heat it up to 180 or something, that's 100 degrees over, and so it helps out. Now I guess put the front cover on. Now when you put that front cover on, the gear is going to lock in with this gear, and that gear is splash lubricated, and it's going to be a little while before splash gets to it. You can't oil it and spin it once you put it on here. So you have to oil it up first and spin it with your finger and make sure that it's lubed good to hold it till the splash gets here. But you have to do that now before you put it on, so it'll be lubricated for the startup. Then I'll get a Q-tip, clean out this hole before I put that cam adapter on here, and put some red Loctite on those. I've never had them come loose, but I think you're supposed to put Loctite on them, aren't you? The parts for the air compressor didn't come in, so I couldn't soda blast it, and I got anxious and went ahead and put the new gear in, and we're not jammed up, we got slack there, so we're good there. Now I'll set up degree wheel. We'll find top dead center and make sure that it's going to match with the timing tab. I've got the harmonic balancer on and the timing tab on and the positive stop. I thought I had a thicker one than that. That looks kind of cheesy on, and so we're getting closer to checking top dead center and making sure that it matches with this timing tab and balancer. These, I think all the gear drives use a regular thrust bearing, Torrington thrust bearing behind it. And so this is a new one, so I had to clean it up or oil everything, you know. This is like a lot of things on here, splash lubricated, so don't stick it on there dry. Give it some stuff. You know what I mean? And then you put on the cam adapter, which adapts the cam to the top gear of the gear drive, which shouldn't be too difficult. When I was 12, that would be 1968, my PE coach, his name was Donald Black, and one of my classmates told me that he's Keith Black's brother. And so I had to ask, well, who's Keith Black? And they told me, well, he builds the motors for the Hawaiian. And I didn't know much about drag racing. I believe I'd heard of the Hawaiian before. And he always had beautiful cars. And he was a young guy. His mama was funding this, of course. And his cars were always beautiful. And he always had the best of everything. Of course, he had Keith Black building his engines, and he had Prudhomme driving for him, I guess, and he did well. And that, I think he picked up the game in Top Fuel as far as building beautiful cars. And, you know, in the old days, you know, Top Fuel cars really weren't that pretty. And when he came along, I think he picked up everybody's game. So I'm glad his mother financed him like that. That was nice of her. Okay, so now we've got the adapter on. Now we need to check the top dead center, match on this, and then degree the cam. But I believe that this degree in the cam is going to take too long to put on this video. So I'll get the degree wheel on here, and then we'll just use the next video for the cam degree.